Okay, everyone, today we are going to learn about memory construction, and that will end our unit on memory. So, memory construction, hopefully you have your notes in front of you. When we talk about memory, some people tend to think that it's just like the book describes it as a DVD. You just have to find the right one and hit play and it will be there, but that's not how memory works. Memory actually works more like puzzle pieces that all have to be put together. And we know that from many, many different experiments. And we also know that the brain tends to fill in information to give you a fuller picture. And that can lead to trouble with memory in terms of creating false memories. So the leading expert in memory construction is Elizabeth Loftus. Her many experiments in the University of California helped define that constructed memory of nature. Her big experiment was the car accident experiment. Basically, people are shown a video of a car accident, and then they are asked leading questions. So when you phrase questions differently, it can lead people to create different memories. They give you different answers, even though they all saw the same video. So, for example, if people were asked how fast were the cars going when they hit, the answers were usually much slower than if they were asked how fast were the cars going when they smashed together. And this is called the misinformation effect. When you incorporate misleading information into a memory of an event. So using the word hit versus the word smashed created a concept that the cars were going much faster than they were, and the accident was much worse. When it comes to misinformation, there's two major areas of memory that are studied, and that is memories of children as well as recovered memories. So we're going to look at those two as the main topics for our lecture today. So on the next slide, children's recall. To start with, children's memories grow more accurate with age. Any memory before the age of 3, studies have shown, does not usually go into long-term storage. So when you saw Joy sending all those memories to long-term storage when she was a little baby, when Riley was a little baby, that's not true. Right around 3 is when they start really remembering and able to fully store memories. Additionally, the older a child gets, the better their memory will become, and they will have less false memories. So false memories is when you either remember an event differently than what happened, or you remember an event that never happened. It's just based on stories that you heard. And false memories can most often be found with children because they are so easily led and because they are so imaginative. So preschool children, much less reliable witnesses than school-age children. However, if you are trained in interviewing children, there are several things you can do to minimize the chance for false memories. You can phrase questions using words that the child can understand. If you ask them questions with where the words are too big or too complicated and they're not really sure what you're asking, they'll try and answer it anyways, because kids will always try and answer a question. But you might not get a real recollection of what's happening. Additionally, the interviewer should not have contact with the child before they interview, because the closer the kid feels to the interviewer, the more likely they're going to try and please them with an answer than necessarily giving the truth. And you also want to use neutral language and no leading questions. So if you're asking something they saw and they're like, oh, did you see the scary man? Then they're going to describe the man as scary, and what they think is scary versus like, did you see the person who came in the room? For the most part, we see for the average child, almost all children, there really is no intentional lying on their part. Because while they make things up and they'll fill it in and they'll swear they remember it that way, it's not intentionally lying where they're trying to cover something up. It's more about them trying to see a positive reaction from the interviewer and trying to please them. So those are all things that can come up with children's recall, and making them more likely to remember things in different ways. And it has a lot to do with how they're interviewed. All right, so moving on to recovered memories. So this is that concept that memories of abuse in childhood can be repressed and then rediscovered in adulthood. It's very, very prominent in TV. And it's also big in a lot, there was a huge wave in the 80s and 90s about repressed and recovered memories. A lot of talk shows about it. But the reality is we unfortunately don't understand a lot of it. So if you look at the two main questions, can repression of memories occur and can recovered memories be false, you find where we're stuck. When it comes to repression of memories occurring, they've done a bunch of research, but it's all inconclusive. And in some cases, people were easily able to remember 20 years later, and some people couldn't remember at all. And unless you have an extensively large base of subjects, you can't create a definitive answer with a small standard deviation. So you see the reality that maybe it is possible that some traumatic events can be forgotten. We know in terms of how memories are made and encoded, traumatic events are more likely to be remembered, but it's not guaranteed. So with that, if you open up the door to say, yes, there can be recovered memories, now we ask, can those recovered memories be false? And that one's a little clearer. The answer is yes. It is particularly often happening when the therapist is not trained very well, and they'll use leading questions. They think their client has a repressed memory, so they will try to help them find it. And also, yes, because most of those methods that people use to find recovered memories are also have been proven to show false memories. You have hypnosis. Remember, we talked about you can be highly suggestible in the hypnosis state. You have imagery, and this is when you actually ask a person to imagine if they had been in that room. What do they think would have happened? And if you know anything about imagination, it's actually very, very effective in creating memories that don't necessarily exist. If you've ever imagined what it would be like to do something and you think about that often, and then all of a sudden it almost feels real. And the last one, dream analysis with good old Freud. And we know that's all false because it's all about the therapist telling you how to analyze that dream and what could it mean. Real fun at parties, but not good psychology. So when it comes to recovered memories, we're not really sure if they can exist, but we do know if they do exist, they could very easily be false. The last part of the lecture is going to focus on your activity for today, and that's about memory accuracy. When you talk about how accurate a memory is, there's 5 things that go in. How was the memory encoded? How long ago was it? Has the memory decayed? Is there information interfering with the memory? So all that covered last class. Is there a reason not to remember the memory? And then are there any falsely constructed details? Is there anything your brain's trying to fill in? So a lot of things can go wrong with making a memory accurate. Most of this needs to be understood for the concept of eyewitness testimony. Eyewitness testimony is very, very favored in the court system today because it has the personal account that goes along with it, and people tend to believe the eyewitness because they often believe themselves of what they remembered. But again, we can have false memories, and you can have many situations where people are ID'd based on witnesses, and if you know anything about the Innocence Project, there have been thousands of people that have been released through the processing of DNA because they were simply convicted on eyewitness accounts that were in fact false, not by the fault of the eyewitness, but simply because their memory was not as accurate as was needed. Okay, so what you're going to do is a quick activity about eyewitness testimony. If we were in class, we would have had an awesome thing where we would have someone yell at to you, and then you have to figure out what color shirt they were wearing. But we can't do that because we're in quarantine, so I'm trying my best. The eyewitness testimony, I need you to do it step by step. Don't read ahead because otherwise that'll wreck it. So just do it. There's a video you're going to watch. Watch the video first. Then go to step 2 and find out what you can do. I've done it 2 different ways. If you're at home by yourself or if you have other people that you can rope into doing your psych work with you, they can help you out even if they are younger. And then finally, step 3 is answering the questions. Those questions are graded. Those will be our first grades in distance learning. All right, so that is the end of memory. We are not having any big quiz or assignment on it. They're not sure they want us to do that yet. We're just going to do small assignments to get us through to April break. All right, if you have any questions, email me, and I'll see you next class.